Welcome to Love Factually, the podcast that analyzes rom-coms and romantic films using the science of close relationships. We're your hosts, Paul Eastwick and Eli Finkel. We are in person, which is not usually how we do this. Eli, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about Titanic.
Yeah.
James Cameron's monumental romantic melodrama which doubles as a dazzling depiction of history's most famous shipwreck. Some of the themes we'll explore are how to cultivate intimacy in a new relationship, whether secret relationships are especially alluring, and the nature of heroism for men and women.
And fair warning, we'll be spoiling this movie today, so if you don't know that the number of lifeboats times the capacity means that there are not enough for everyone aboard, then go ahead and watch this movie and come back. Okay, Eli, who are the key characters and couples in this movie?
I thought for sure you were going to say, if you don't want to know whether the boat sinks.
Yeah, right. Then where have you been for the last 100 plus years? Yeah.
Aside from the ship itself, there are two protagonists in Titanic, Jack Dawson and Rose DeWitt Bukater. Jack is a 20-year-old free-spirited drifter played by Leonardo DiCaprio. Savvy, charming, and artistic, he is, in the words of the Chicago Tribune's Michael Phillips, short on funds but long on moxie. Rose is a 17-year-old debutante played by Kate Winslet. Lacerating, intelligent, and wry, she is engaged to Keil Hockley. Keil is an insufferable blowhard, a plutocrat, and a villain of the mustache-twirling variety.
Yes.
Ruth is Rose's mother. She's pressuring Rose to marry Keil to escape financial precarity that threatens their upper-crust lifestyle. Molly Brown, the unsinkable Molly Brown, is a nouveau riche American who helps Jack look the part of a gentleman. Now, the ship sank in 1912, but there's also a present-day plotline centered around a treasure hunter named Brock Lovett, played by Bill Paxton, and he is searching for a massive diamond that presumably sank with the ship. So, Paul, those are the chess pieces. Are you ready to give us 1 minute on how the film moves them across the board?
Yes. Now, I have a disclaimer here that I have made the choice to focus only on the events of 1912 in my summary of this movie that is over 3 hours. Okay.
I respect that choice.
Okay.
On your mark, get set, go.
In 1912, Rose DeWitt Bukater boards the RMS Titanic with her fiancé Keil and her status-obsessed mother. Rose feels suffocated by her privileged but joyless life. She contemplates suicide at the ship's stern, but she's talked back down by Jack Dawson, a free-spirited artist who won his Titanic ticket in a poker game. Despite their class differences and Keil and Rose's mother's disapproval, Rose and Jack begin to form a deep connection, including a dance below decks. Rose briefly attempts to recommit to her restricted upper-class life, then recants. She and Jack kiss on the bow. He sketches her wearing only the Heart of the Ocean necklace, and they have a passionate encounter in a car in the cargo hold. Then, of course, the Titanic strikes an iceberg and begins to sink. As chaos spreads, Jack is falsely accused of theft and locked below deck, but Rose rescues him with her incomparable axe-wielding skill. Together, they navigate the flooding ship, clinging to each other as the Titanic breaks apart and sinks into the Atlantic. In the frigid water, Jack helps Rose onto a floating door, but he can't fit himself, and because only one lifeboat comes back to look for survivors, he doesn't make it after she is rescued. Rose honors Jack by adopting his name and forging a new life free from Keil and her mother.
Whoa, we had plenty of time, like 57.2. Well played.
Ooh. So my relationship to this movie, this came out the winter break right after my very first semester of college.
Oh, fun.
And I don't know how often we've talked about this, but my first semester actually was not great. Like, I made like a couple of good friends, but for the most part, I felt pretty alienated in those first few months, and I was so stoked to get back home and see a lot of my close high school friends. And I just remember going to this movie over and over.
Oh, no kidding.
And over again, because it was like if one person in your crowd, in your gaggle, had not seen it, plans just changed on a dime.
Interesting.
So you go to see something else, but inevitably you all go to see Titanic again. So I saw it many times in the theater over that break.
Yeah, I love that you're capturing the cultural zeitgeist of the whole thing.
It's hard for people to appreciate today, but for like elder millennials and younger Gen Xers, this was about the biggest piece of monoculture you can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think if there is a match for this. It's like Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Or something.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also amazing that this wasn't like IP. I mean, is the Titanic real event IP? Like, not really, right? But this was like a totally new story, from the mind of James Cameron. I mean, it's just kind of wild.
Yes, and it was a disaster movie. It was a love story. It was historical fiction. There are full-on parts that are basically horror, like when Keil is chasing them around with a gun. Then at the end, there's like dead bodies floating in the water. It's basically gore, right? Not like bloody gore, but it's
terrifying.
It was a lot for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the level of connection in real time to the film, but I have a connection to the Titanic, right?
Oh.
The phenomenon itself.
You were there?
No. Yes, I was one of the survivors. So my dad plays piano and sings songs, and he was very good about making that fun for children. It would be Great Balls of Fire and kid songs and so forth. And one of the songs, I don't know whether this is something everybody grew up with or just me. Did you grow up with that? It was sad when that great ship went down.
Oh, no.
It was sad. No. So sad. And so one thing.
Oh, that does ring a bell.
Yeah. And it's, you know what? I think I wrote it down. It's like some of the words in that song were, they built the ship Titanic to sail the ocean blue, for they thought they had a ship that the water would never go through. And I remember this really well as a kid. What's wild to me is I remember him telling me they never found it. So I was an age, maybe I was just not young enough of a Gen Xer, but I am old enough to remember a period of time when I knew about the Titanic, was interested in it, and it was still this great mystery where it was.
They hadn't found it yet. So what year did they find it?
1985, when I was 10. So there was a brief period of time. And then I remember this song that my dad had been singing about and that I had been really interested in learning about.
The song is invalid.
Yeah, right. The song is no longer legit. But the reality is, it was really significant to me that they discovered it because, again, I'm just barely old enough that I remembered being like bewildered and kind of awed by the fact that there could be this ship at the bottom of the ocean and nobody ever found
where it was. That's wild. So talk to us. What does this movie get right about the nature of attraction and close relationships? Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, it gets a surprising amount right.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with this over the last couple of days and was like, my goodness. One of the themes that we talk about sometimes is this idea of relationship microcultures, that one of the ways that we can actually build closeness and intimacy together is to focus on the unique names that we have, the unique phrases that we use, the unique in-jokes that we have that might not even make sense from the outside. And, those are things that emerge in relationships, but every once in a while you get a depiction on screen of how those things can emerge fast.
Yes.
And I think this movie does a great job. So some of the lines that have so much significance to us have significance because they're relationship callbacks. So, for example, you remember the line, you jump, I jump?
Right, of course.
Comes up several times, right? So it first comes up when Rose is threatening to commit suicide.
Right.
And then it comes up a second time when Jack is trying to convince her, you can't marry Keil, you'll be miserable. We're in this together. You jump, I jump. And then, of course, at the very end, she's about to be saved on a lifeboat.
Yeah.
And she jumps off the lifeboat because she doesn't want to be saved without Jack. And what does she say? You jump, I jump.
Yeah.
And this is, let me just give another example or two. There's something that's subtle that I never caught before. When they're having that glorious scene where Jack tells her to close her eyes, and then she steps on the front of the boat. This is earlier where he said, I'm the king of the world.
Yeah.
And he says, put your arms out. Okay, open your eyes. And she's like, Jack, I'm flying. He's mumbling. He's singing under his breath.
Oh,
and
the Josephine song.
You know this? Okay, because
the
I
flying
hadn't
machine.
caught it.
Yeah.
It's Come Josephine in My Flying Machine, and it's about, these are the early days of aviation. This is a 1910 song, and it's about aviation in a literal sense, but it's also about breaking through boundaries and flying to the sky and those sorts of things. And she hums it when she's on the raft at the end, when she's on that door at the end.
Yep.
Again, beautiful, beautiful examples of what it's like to build a microculture, even if you only have 2.5 days.
Yeah, right. Seriously. Along these lines, I was impressed to see how the movie depicted the way that they build intimacy and closeness over that couple-day period.
Right.
I mean, it's a lot of vulnerability. It's a lot of the ability to connect across distance. I mean, I think one of the things that they set up that works very well is that when they meet, they are meeting in an informal setting more or less as equals, right?
Interesting.
So the trappings of social class in that moment are not as essential as the fact that she's standing on the stern of the ship ready to jump.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and I think that helps forge a connection and gives them something to build from in a way that I think never would have happened under any other circumstances. It's hard to imagine how they would have found the opportunity or the reason to connect over something.
Right.
But the moment of vulnerability there provides an opening. And then also, he's vulnerable with her at various points, sharing his artwork. There's a lot of vulnerability and a lot of good intimacy process model stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel understood by you. I feel like you see the real me, and that means I'm willing to open up a little more. So the first 48 hours they have together before shit gets real is a good illustration of that.
Yeah, and it helps to explain why, when shit got real, they behaved as they did. Why she refused to be saved without him. Why, when there was an opportunity for only one of them to survive, he wanted to make sure that she made it.
Yeah.
I noticed this too. Now, your observation about the way that they first met being a way to bridge the class divide, I hadn't noticed that. And it is interesting because there's a period of time when they're feeling each other out and they don't totally know what to do. When she's like, excuse me, you're rude. Right? Do you remember this?
Right.
And there's a little bit of you're asking me questions that are impertinent, but also not like you're a gutter snipe, but like I'm a lady and I will be treated with dignity. And this isn't sort of who she is at her core.
Right.
But how could she not have a huge amount of that, because this is all of what her mom wants to turn her into.
But it kind of feels like he then sees to the core of who she is, right? He's like, I don't know. He was like nonplussed by that.
And I think maybe you're right that one of the major reasons why is because he caught her at a moment of vulnerability where they couldn't have this problem of she lives 3 decks up from me and we'd never cross paths.
Yeah.
The way that this really came through for me was the scene where she realizes how kind of ridiculous it is that somebody who has all of these luxuries in life is whining about her circumstances.
Look, I know what you must be thinking. Poor little rich girl. What does she know about misery?
No, it's not what I was thinking. What I was thinking was, what could have happened to this girl to make her think she had no way out?
Well, it was everything. It was my whole world and all the people in it. And the inertia of my life. Plunging ahead and me, powerless to stop it.
What I love so much about it is, look, she is enormously privileged. She does have all this stuff that he doesn't have, including, like, he's literally homeless.
Yeah. Right.
And so she is self-aware enough to say, like, you must think, poor little rich girl. And his response, he's not going to condemn her. Now, in fairness, he doesn't give her a free ride everywhere either. He later says, like, you're obnoxious, and he calls her out. But what he's saying here is, I understand your pain.
It's good validation.
It's validation. And that's exactly it. Like people like Carl Rogers, the humanistic psychology tradition, they talk about unconditional positive regard. You mentioned the intimacy process model. This is Harry Reese and others. And what they've suggested is that we feel close. We feel like we can open up when we feel understood, validated, and cared for. And this was a pivotal moment early in the relationship where she realized, Jack values me. He understands me. He cares about me. I feel comfortable getting more intimate and closer with him.
The other things that I really like about the escalation of their relationships are these small little moments of reciprocity too. So there's a classic Art Ahrens study, getting people to reflect on moments where they were falling in love. And when you ask people to do this, they remember these moments of reciprocity, right? Getting those signals that maybe this person is into you. And there are a whole bunch of these, but the one I love is when he passes her the note that's, inviting her below deck. I just love that moment. You see it all over her face, like this thrill, but also the danger, but also the what am I doing of it all. And it's very compelling in that sense. So there's a bunch of little moments like that too that I like.
I love that you plucked out that scene. It's related to some of the stuff we were talking about earlier. So it says 2 things. Make it count. Meet me at the clock.
Yeah.
Now, talk about microculture. That
so
clock
good.
is
it's
everything.
So good. Right.
Even when at the end, I don't know that we're getting into so much of like the present day storyline, but she eventually dies as an old lady. And when she goes to Titanic heaven, where is he? He's at the clock.
Yeah.
What time is it on the clock? 2:20 p.m., which is the moment Titanic sank. But there's a second reason why I love that is he hands her that note, and it's an invitation. It's many things at once, but one of the things is, we have this private thing going. Yeah. They're at a table, and everybody around them is not allowed to know this. Like her mother, whom Rose describes as like, my mother looked at him like he was an insect that needed to be squashed.
Needed to be squashed, yep.
And right next to her, and yet he slips her the note and she reads it subtly, and then she meets him there and they go have this like underdeck party. That sounds like a euphemism, but it really
was a party under decks.
Underdeck party.
That's not a problem.
Yeah, but there is this interesting, it's a small literature. It's an older literature, so I don't know if there's been sort of high-powered replications of these studies recently, but a literature on the allure of secret relationships.
Yeah, secret footsie.
Yeah, secret footsie. Okay, so that's part of a paper. This is Dan Wegner and others from 1994. The title of the paper is The Allure of Secret Relationships. So they start out with a couple of survey studies, and they ask people, so for example, in one of the studies, they say, please report on 2 relationships that have ended. And they ask how secret the relationships were at the time and how much romantic passion they felt for the person when they were together. And you find the secret effect. You find that on average, people were hotter for their exes when those relationships were more secret rather than less. And then they end up with this experimental manipulation. Now, look, this is a smaller study than I wish it were. We have to see a replication to feel confident. But Dan Wegner and his colleagues set up a situation where 2 men and 2 women.
It's very clever.
It's so good. They show up together and then people get like private instructions. So there's written instructions and one pair. There's 2 pairs of people. Each of a man is paired with a woman is paired with a man. And one man-woman pair gets the instructions. We would like you to keep your feet in contact with each other while the 4 of you are playing this card game for the next 10 minutes. And then they also manipulate whether the other side knows. The other 2 people, do they know that you're basically playing footsie or do they not know? And the key finding from this paper is that people who were randomly assigned to have their feet in contact and have the other side not know it felt greater romantic attraction to each other after the 10-minute interaction.
It's wild. I mean, it is one of these, like, who knows if you do a large-scale replication, but whether it's in Gets Right or it's What We Wish We Knew, I'm glad we're talking about it. That study's pretty hilarious. One of the things that comes through very well in this movie that actually doesn't come through in a lot of the movies that we cover is the nature of heroism. Because, yes, this is a romantic plot line, but there's also a disaster movie in here.
Yeah.
And, I give it to James Cameron. Like, when it comes to heroism, he will find opportunities for the male characters to exhibit heroism, and he will find opportunities for the women to exhibit heroism.
Yeah.
When she's going through below decks to try to find Jack, and I'd forgotten how long it is.
I know.
She's down there for a while.
And the water's rising, and nobody's down there. Like, every once in a while, somebody walks past, they're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're going to die.
Yeah. And then, like, she finally finds him. They can't get the keys to work, and then she's got to go on the axe hunt, and then come back with the axe and practice with the axe a couple times. Anyway,
straight out of The Shining.
Right? Yeah, right. She's a little less on target.
Yeah, I mean, but again, that's one of the things that's so compelling about James Cameron, right? He doesn't do everything well. He's got his foibles, but right in the midst of this harrowing disaster story and this beautiful love story, he takes the time for
to
her
have
to
a bona fide joke.
Yeah, for her to practice the axe, and she can't hit the same spot twice, and she's about to take an axe within inches of where his hand is going to be. Yeah, and it's funny and it's compelling.
It's genuinely funny.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's talk about heroism and how that manifests for men and women. I think for a long time, our archetype of the hero is the man rushing into the burning building, right? Rushing into the dangerous situation. And so if that was your understanding of heroism, you might say Rose going on this adventure below decks to rescue Jack, maybe that doesn't quite fit with the literature if this isn't the kind of heroism that women usually do. Nevertheless, I give credit to the movie for getting this right. And here's why. It is true that many of the sudden acts of heroism, like the Carnegie medals, do go to men. But many of those dramatic acts are in public and for the benefit of strangers. Like, that's what you get that medal for.
Interesting.
Okay? And that when you're talking about more interpersonal context, when you're talking about something that doesn't require an immediate action but requires some amount of forethought, actually, in those cases, women are pretty much just as likely as men to do these very brave acts, especially if it's for something like a family member or somebody that they really care about.
I do love that distinction because it's easy for us to think heroic behavior like this is a male thing to do. And again, you're identifying that in some ways it is, when it's for a stranger, when it requires no forethought.
Yeah.
But this idea that we would go save a child or a loved one, even under enormously death-defying circumstances, women and men alike are willing and able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think about the Ripley sequence in Aliens, also James Cameron. I mean, we're never going to cover Aliens. I wish we could, but but right. I mean, the last portion of that movie is her rushing back into a very dangerous area to rescue Newt, the young girl.
Yes.
And, you know, seeing Rose do that here was pretty cool. There's another interesting gendered thing in the literature, which is that, you know, sometimes our measures of things like risk-taking were biased in a particular direction that made us think that men tended to be more risk takers than women. And in part of it, it was because of how they constructed the items. So I'll read to you here some of the items from the old scales. And they're things like, how likely are you to bet a day's income on the outcome of a sporting event?
Oh, man.
E.g., baseball, soccer, or football. Okay?
They don't even get to figure skating?
Right. They didn't get to figure skating. So they change the items. They update them to things like, okay, how likely are you to spend the amount of money that you would spend on a meal out on scratch cards?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Well, that's not gendered.
Interesting. Men and women are the same.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, and there's a whole bunch of domains where you can do this. You can even equate the risk properly. So they've got items that are like, how likely are you to ride a motorcycle without a helmet for 30 minutes or take a 90-minute horseback ride without a helmet?
Interesting.
Those are equated in terms of risk. Notice the times are different, right?
Yep.
But the risk is the same. And like the motorcycle is gendered in the male direction and the horseback riding is gendered in the female direction, right? So it's not about risk taking.
That's
about
good research.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's really good stuff. Anyway, that's why we tend to think, who's going to take the risk? Who's going to run back into the burning building? It's the man. The reality looks more like this movie where they're both doing heroic things for a long sequence.
Yes. One of the reasons why I love that research as much as I do is it's such a good illustration of why it's important for social science to have diverse perspectives.
Yeah.
And this is diverse perspectives in lots of different ways, right? Like this is gender. This example is gender.
Yep.
But one of the things in our world that really affected me was Terry Conley, who called out relationship science for saying like your scales of things like commitment are confounded with monogamy.
Yep.
Right? It's possible to be committed in a non-monogamous context, but if the items in your scale are things like it's likely that I will date somebody else or it's unlikely I will date somebody else in the next year.
It's not a valid item for people who are polyamorous.
Exactly. Like, how are they supposed to answer that? And if they say, like, no, I am going to do it, they get coded as low commitment. So I love those sorts of examples where we realize, like, actually, the researchers, they're doing the best they can with the vantage point that they have, but bringing in additional vantage points.
We've all got vantage points.
Makes the science better. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, talk to me. What else do you have here?
One more thing that I think is really worth thinking about is there's this line that I think everybody remembers from this movie where older Rose, this is in the present timeline, she looks back at this sketch that Jack had drawn of her. Now, it is a very sexy sketch. She is naked other than wearing a necklace with a massive diamond. And what does she say? She says, "Wasn't I a dish?"
Yeah, right.
And so I find that was a very interesting way of talking about it because a dish implies like delectable. Right? That it's like
consumable.
Consumable. Like I was out for display and someone was very hungry for me.
Yeah.
And so I find this interesting because there's this age-old literature in our field and beyond on this idea of objectification.
Right.
What's interesting about that literature is it sounds a little like this. It's like, I'm valued for my body.
Right. Okay.
And it's clearly bad. Like women get this disproportionately. It's clearly associated with lower self-esteem and body shame and all this, and all these sorts of negative outcomes. In recent years, a researcher at Florida State named Andrea Meltzer has said, yeah, but what if that happens within the context of a close romantic relationship?
Yep. Yeah.
So if we tuck into the Andrea Meltzer research on this, she has items, scale items that men report, Things like, how much do you value your wife for her body?
Okay.
Now, what's so interesting about these studies is that in general, when women feel that from their significant other, they feel better about themselves, not worse, and they don't feel that they've been objectified.
Right.
And what's so interesting about that is the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Valuing me for sexual pleasure. These are things that are appealing to us when it's from our partner. We don't feel dehumanized, but when they happen from a stranger
you feel terrible.
Unappealing and dehumanizing.
Right. Exactly. That is, I think, a great distinction that she's getting at here. And so in that moment, when Jack is sketching her, that's two humans connecting, and they joke about it, right? I mean, he's like, this is not like painting a landscape. Right? But that's also true because they feel something for each other. One other small thing that I really like in the disaster sequence that I think captures something very real, although very harrowing, is that we see a lot of attachment behaviors, and here I'm not referring to attachment styles. I'm talking about, support, proximity seeking. And, I mean, this is absolutely impossible for me to imagine what it would be like to be in a situation like this. But I like the way that James Cameron is showing parallels between parent-child attachment, right?
Nice.
We see many parents sort of functioning as caregivers in these final moments, but we also see adult attachment between romantic partners that looks kind of the same.
You're totally right.
Right? It's the same thing, and that's been, the main point that attachment theorists have been making for 30, 40 years is, right, it's the same system, the same things that make us feel attached to parents or caregivers. It's the same system that makes us feel attached to each other.
And the attachment behaviors are touching, tender caressing, hugs, love. Absolutely right.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about misconceptions. There are a few characters we haven't really talked about yet.
Cal?
Maybe because they go in this group. I think we both clearly agree. The Cal character, it's cartoonish.
Yeah.
And look, I get it. We're trying to tell a story here.
Yeah.
But he does not seem like a real person, honestly, vis-a-vis his relationship to Rose. I'm not. When you imagine what the archetype patriarchal villain looks like,
that's what he is.
This is the guy.
Yeah.
Like, Rose is his property.
Yeah.
And if he gets mad, he's going to start shooting.
I mean, literally,
Yeah. But this is actually not a great reflection of what we know, even about fraught, violent relationships.
Yes, I noticed this as well. So not only is there the part where he's chasing after Jack and Rose and shooting them, but earlier he feels disrespected by Rose.
Right.
And he strikes her across the face. And look, this exists. This is called patriarchal terrorism or intimate terrorism. And to understand how these sorts of examples fit into the broader research literature on domestic violence, it's worth going back to consider some early debates in this literature from the 70s and the 80s. There were basically two research programs that were using like the same sort of language to study things like domestic violence. One of them was saying this is something that men commit against women. It escalates over time. It's part of a controlling relational style. And the other was saying, no, it's really about like conflict situations that get out of hand, and the woman's every bit as likely to hit the man as vice versa.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the 90s, a guy named Michael Johnson had this crucial paper in 1995 where he distinguished two different types of domestic violence. The first one he called patriarchal terrorism. And this is what people were studying in that first category.
Right.
That is,
when you have like police records and you have like shelter records and stuff like that.
That's right. If you go to battered women's shelter and figure out like what happened to these women, overwhelmingly you're getting this sort of Cal-esque type things. I don't know that they're mustache twirling villains. Like, he's a little bit two-dimensional here. But yes, the idea that she is to obey him, that if she gets uppity, he will put her back in her place. That is real. And what we've seen in the subsequent years, there's been language changes to how you talk about these two categories. But the general story is this type is thankfully rare.
Right.
It is not very many men who do this. It is not very many women who have to endure this type of treatment. The much more common, like 15 to 20 times more common thing that you see is something closer to people are fighting and And where can we hurt each other more? Where can we frustrate each other more than in our closest relationships?
Right.
Who is it?
Hot-headed people get in relationships.
Yeah. Hot-headed people in relationships. And you know what? They know how to hurt us.
Yeah.
They know our most vulnerable spots, and they can make fun of us as inadequate lovers or other really hurtful sorts of things. And so, yes, people like Keil exist. That is a small type of the world of intimate partner violence. It is a terrifying part, a part that is crucial for policymakers to take seriously.
Yeah.
But if you think of the typical situation in which some level of violence, slapping, punching, kicking, these sorts of things do happen. If you think of the typical situation where those enter the relationship, it's usually not a patriarchal terrorist who's trying to own his woman.
Yeah, and I think another thing about the Keil character that I find not particularly believable is that when he feels as though his relationship with Rose is threatened, he goes right to the violent stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, he doesn't do the more common things that people do under those circumstances,
Yes.
which is like reach out, engage in some bids, like try to like see what's going on, at least try to like gather more information. It's none of that struck me as particularly realistic.
I did a deep dive on this because I noticed this as well. So what do we do when we feel like we might be losing our partner? There is research on this. David Buss has some compelling work where you ask people, when you're trying to make sure that you keep your partner, what are the sorts of things that you do? And
right. You lock them in a room, right? That's obviously what you do.
You lock them in a room, and then eventually you shoot them with a gun.
Yeah.
Or at least try. So first let me start with things
That's not the answer.
No, it's not the full answer. So first let me start with some of the things that people do that Keil also showed. So sometimes it's like, I have resources. You should respect me. I'm going to come back to potential gender similarities and differences here. Sometimes it's vigilance, like close monitoring. Sometimes you try to monopolize the partner's time or, punish the infidelity threat or whatever else. And we do see those things. But the major thing that people do by far and away is love and care.
Yeah, right.
This is the far and away the most likely thing we do when we're worried about losing our partner is
it's the most common thing.
Kindness, nurturing, love, and Keil has none of that. They just, again, this is not
an ounce of it.
Not an ounce. And I don't think this is the finest part of the movie. They make him such a buffoon also, like the Picasso thing.
Oh, yeah.
So they just make him out to be ridiculous.
One of the issues that I had with this movie kind of has to do with the ending. I know a lot of people find the ending very charming. And I'm talking about how older Rose, after she tells this whole harrowing tale, and it is genuinely a harrowing tale.
Oh, yeah.
She says right here,
and I've never spoken of him until now. Not to anyone. Not even your grandfather. A woman's heart is a deep ocean of secrets.
Yeah, not even your grandfather.
Yeah. And again, I think some people find these lines rather charming, rather romantic or something. I don't. I'll try to explain why. So she had a terrible, life-altering, traumatic event happen to her.
Yeah.
She lost somebody that she'd fallen in love with, and he was the reason that she survived. And she never mentions it.
Yeah, it's wild.
That isn't the best way to process trauma, according to the science.
Right.
You should talk about it with other people. You should process it in the context of other close relationships.
Yeah.
It would, I think, be very common for people. Yes, it will take a while to move on from this, but you will form another relationship. And then I think most people would do well to talk about these experiences in that next relationship. There's also work suggesting that when you keep big secrets from romantic partners, that doesn't bode well for those relationships. So again, part of the reason I'm hitting this moment is because of the way it's played romantically, and because I do think a lot of people see this idea in this, like, we all have our secrets that we take with us to our graves, but we really should be sharing and opening up to our relationship partners. That ultimately that goes better for people's, well-being and for their relationship health.
Yeah, I'm having two thoughts about this. One is this, I just don't know this literature on like when people have a level of trauma that they never speak about again. There's like the stereotype anyway that there's some Holocaust survivors who were just never able to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like knowing my own temperament, I could have been one of those people.
Yeah.
Like, I think if I had endured some horror at the level of what Rose endured here, or heaven forbid, something like a Holocaust, Auschwitz or whatever, I don't know that I ever would have been able to get over it or even just to speak about it. But you are right that I think that silence would come at a cost. Not just to me, but to my ability to connect deeply with other people. And I do think maybe we see that because when Rose is laying out the photos, this is 101-year Rose.
Yeah.
Her husband is not a prominent player in those photos. And I wonder whether
it looks like she had a good life. It looks like she did a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, she had a wonderful life. That's the point.
Yeah. But it's kind of a bummer. And this kind of transitions into the are we okay with this component of this movie. The movie, with those just few moments at the end, made the choice to go in the direction of, this was her one and only. She got 2 days, and then she got to live with that for the rest of her life. I don't think that's an accurate way for thinking about how relationships work. People are often very capable of moving on from a past relationship, even a past relationship under traumatic circumstances like these that was life-altering in a profound way. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, to convey this message of like, oh, that was her one chance, that was all she got. I mean, it's just a bummer. I don't know how to put it
It's a bummer, and I think it's a misleading message for the film to be sending to the public. And, lots of people who lost a spouse and were enduring unendurable grief for a long period of time and couldn't ever fathom that they could ever fall in love again, do.
Yeah.
They fall in love again. And not 100% of them, but it is not at all rare that they emerge out of that misery and they make another life and fall in love. And now, look, she did. She got married for a lifetime and so forth. But I share your view that the message that this was the one and only and so be it, it's gone, is a bummer.
This is kind of related, too, on the topic of processing trauma, to the way the movie handles the unsinkable Molly Brown. Mm-hmm. Now, again, this just kind of feels like they ran out of runway with her. I mean,
it's 3
movie
hours
is long,
and 14 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the last thing we see of Molly Brown is her kind of getting shot down in the lifeboat, castigating people for not going back, and they're like, no, sit down, and that's kind of the end of it.
Yeah.
But what she ends up doing...
You're talking about the real world.
The real world, Molly Brown, what she ends up doing is on the deck of the Carpathia, she and a few other people start like these listening sessions. Again, therapy was rather new at the time, but she's like, we should just give people, especially the third class and second class passengers, a place to come talk about the trauma they just experienced.
Wow.
And they were overwhelmed with people who wanted to come and talk to them.
Wow.
And I think that gets at this idea that when people go through these traumatic experiences, they very commonly want to talk about it. When I learned that about her, I was like, oh, I kind of wish I'd gotten to see that.
Totally. So I have a lot that I could talk about here in the Are We Okay With This bucket. First, let me start with something that I think is kind of neat, which is... I think it's fair to say that the primary protagonist here is the woman. Yeah, and you and I have talked about other movies where it's like, no, the man and the woman gets equal screenplay and they're both really protagonists, but it's really the man who grows.
Yeah.
This is the woman. I mean, Jack was awesome in your language from the jump.
Yeah.
And Rose was the one who grew and changed. And so I like that.
That's a great point. It's like inverse Pretty Woman.
It's inverse Pretty Woman.
Yeah,
it's a little complicated because the way in which she grew and then lived her life, it's almost like he scripted it out for her.
Yeah, right.
So I have ambivalence.
That's a little
weird. But then I have like, I try not to spend much time on these, but just in the, bad rom-com tropes, this is yet again the laid-back man fixes uptight woman.
Right, fair enough.
This one's confounded with no means yes. So when they first go down to the party underneath and he's trying to get her to dance and she's like, no, and he's like, yes, you will. And again, it's all fine with us because she really deep down wants to do it. But the fact is, she's saying no. no. And he's sort of forcing her. There's like a casual bigotry that we see in some of these older movies. So when Rose is first looking at his sketchbook, she sees these beautiful images and she says, "You like this woman. You've used her several times." And he said, "Well, she has beautiful hands, see?" And Rose says, "I think you must have had a love affair with her." And he says, no, just with her hands. She was a one-legged prostitute.
Oh, right. Like that somehow.
It's possible to love somebody who has a disability or who does sex work.
Yeah.
So these are some of the examples that seemed a little weird. One other one here that's unique to this movie, but I think it's sort of in a bad trope sort of category, is like, she talks about herself as if she's enslaved. All right, lady.
Yeah.
It's like a bit much.
Yeah.
This is not
You're
a slave
not
ship and you're
in
not
chains.
in chains.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me about this movie that I thought was interesting but also a little confounding is that we're clearly at a moment of transition where you may be pressured to marry for wealth, to maintain that wealth, to get more wealth. Okay, so this is a thing that happens. But it's also clear that women of Rose's social class could go to college, and many of them would find fairly wealthy husbands there.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that maybe like Cal is mega rich, and those guys at college would just be a little rich, okay? Yeah. But what I find interesting here is that there's clearly a shifting Overton window where now the idea of women being able to go out and, meet husbands kind of their own choosing, who might, still be able to maintain some sort of wealth, that these ideas are out there. And that makes it a little confusing why she's thinking suicide, like, rather than go to college. It's just like a little weird.
It's a little weird. I think part of why she's thinking that, I think when she describes it, it's like, the invitations have been sent, and she feels
it's like a done deal.
It's like a done deal, and she can't find a way out. Even though I agree with you, it's not that there literally isn't a way out, but she felt like maybe there wasn't one. But that's maybe also
fair enough. I know people will feel like this today when people do have much more freedom. They will feel like they're trapped in various things. Yeah. So I totally get that. So it's interesting to contrast with some of the older movies we've covered, things like Pride and Prejudice, where now there are these other avenues other than the families that you can be set up with by your parents. You could go this other route too, and that's an interesting marker of that shift.
No, this is an enormous shift that young people went off someplace and found a partner for themselves without the intermediation of their parents. Yeah, that was a new phenomenon, and you're right. By 1912, which is the year the Titanic sank, you're seeing this emergence in a big way.
Anything else in this category?
Yes. What do you make of her throwing away the diamond at the end? I think we're led to understand that this thing's worth, I don't know, $500 million, some ridiculous amount. And I think, boy, she could have done something nice with that money.
Yeah. Again, it kind of speaks to the romanticism of he was my one true love. And so this needs to be buried with him. And
it seems narcissistic to me.
No, right. Take it and how about use it to create a foundation for people to offer trauma processing to other survivors of major disasters.
The unsinkable Molly Brown consulting agency.
There you go. She could have used that money.
The unsinkable Molly Brown therapeutic enterprise.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't love it. I understand the storytelling choice.
Yeah.
I'm yucking other people's yum right now.
Yeah.
I get it. But
I'm with you, though.
Yeah.
And then if I had to pick one other thing, I mean, it's so flagrant in here, but we'll just say it briefly. She's really treating Cal badly. And again, I think we're okay with it because he's a cartoon villain. But pretty much nobody is a cartoon villain like Cal is.
Yeah, this is the problem, is that when a movie contains good guys and bad guys, okay, then all the behaviors of the good guys become justifiable.
Yes.
They all make sense. You root for them all.
Yes.
But the reality is, in a relationship that did not have heroes and villains, that have actual people, these kinds of behaviors are terrible.
Yeah.
So it's just very complicated. I mean, this is the danger of layering a good guy, bad guy movie on top of a romantic movie. And I get it. And it's one of the greatest movies ever made. But yeah, those are the problems.
I think maybe that's a different way of characterizing my concern. Not that she was like unfaithful to Cal.
Yeah.
But that this message of sometimes your partner is Voldemort, and then you're like, anything
then
you
it's
do
okay.
is like acceptable because almost nobody's Voldemort.
Yeah. Almost.
Almost nobody.
Okay. All right. So let's get into some quotes. I want to start with this one that I think nicely captures some of the validation stuff that we were talking about earlier. And so this is a sequence between Jack and Rose, and Jack says,
And
Jack,
no, let me try and get this out. You're a mate. I'm not an idiot. I know how the world works. I've got $10 in my pocket. I have nothing to offer you, and I know that. I understand, but I'm too involved now. You jump, I jump, remember? I can't turn away without knowing you'll be all right. That's all that I want.
Well, I'm fine. I'll be fine. Really.
Really? I don't think so. They've got you trapped, Rose. And you're gonna die if you don't break free. Maybe not right away because you're strong, but sooner or later, that fire that I love about you, Rose, that fire is gonna burn out.
It's not up to you to save me, Jack.
You're right. Only you can do that.
Yeah, I do love how that ends.
yeah, it's a good example of, I see you, we got the validation in there, but it's also not like, oh, I'm here to rescue you, right?
Yeah.
It's like, here's what I see. This is my assessment, but if you agree that I'm seeing you for who you really are, you are going to need to do something to escape this situation.
Yeah,
I like that.
I love that too. He's urging her to be what she really is deep down.
Yeah.
And he doesn't feel like it's his job to live that life for her, but to afford the possibility that she could live it for herself.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the lines I liked is actually embedded in there. So you might have caught in the middle of this, like, I'm involved now.
Yeah.
The speech, by the way, has multiple of these sorts of callbacks. Remember, it has you jump, I jump.
Right. It's just filled with the callbacks.
Yeah, I mean, the I'm involved now, that's from the early scene where she was, potentially going to commit suicide. And here it is coming back again. But I think I loved I'm involved now because it's as simplified or elegant a way as I can think of as saying, we're in this together.
Yeah, right.
It's like what a relationship is. It's like, now I'm responsible for you.
Yeah.
And I love it. I'm involved now. It's a very elegant way to say it.
Right. It's part of what it means to like invest in something. And even though it's only been a couple of days, he feels invested.
He's there.
Yeah.
He's involved now.
What do we wish we knew? I mean, we alluded to this idea earlier that, I don't know if there have been any attempted replications of the secret footsie study, but, that could go here. But yeah, what else do you wish we knew about close relationships?
Well, I'd like to talk about my favorite topic, nudes. So she has him sketch that nude. Right. So, sorry. Right. She has him make that sketch of her. And it is, when she says, wasn't I a dish? She looks gorgeous. She looks beautiful and sexy. And it's interesting because we now, not 1912, but now we live in a generation where, I don't know the numbers, but most of us or the younger generations have taken one of these of ourselves, have maybe sent them to other people. And one thing that I think is interesting is we will all be old someday. And to the degree that these things continue to exist, like, will 85-year-old Paul Eastwick be excited about all those nudes
when
you
Jack
took of
Dawson
yourself?
sketched me?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. Like, she looks back and says, wasn't I a dish? And I can easily imagine that when we're old, we might want to have those photos. And so I just don't know whether it's the sort of thing that's like going to be good for us as we're aging.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I found thought-provoking. Let me mention one of these. So she clearly lives the vision of her life that he laid out for her, right? They had this whole part about like, oh, am I going to ride like a man, ride a horse like a man with one leg on the other side?
None of this side saddle stuff.
Yeah, none of the side saddle. And then in the end, we see photos of her. She's brought these photos with her, and the photos are basically the things that he dreamt for her.
Yeah.
So what I find interesting is, if we're going to live a good life, To what degree do we need to have authored it ourselves?
Yeah.
Now, look, lots of us have therapists we respect, or gurus we respect, or people that we look up to who sort of advise us on what a good life looks like. She's very happy with her life. And I guess I don't know whether that's feasible. That you can actually live a fulfilling life if it's mainly been scripted for you, or whether you really need to identify the beats on your own.
I think what I find a little counterintuitive about what she did is that I actually think it would be quite hard to have this profound experience, have this traumatic experience, and then go off and do the things that you were supposed to do together.
Yeah.
I actually think that would be harder.
That is interesting.
Than scripting something on your own. I understand that, like, he afforded her the ability to run away from the life she really didn't want.
Boy.
But I guess what I'd like to know is, when we pursue the dreams that we forged with somebody else versus carve a new path, what ultimately feels fulfilling. I would expect that if you're working with a plan that actually dates back to a prior relationship that isn't around anymore for whatever reason, that's actually kind of hard than if you forge a new thing.
Boy, it is interesting. It's sort of the plot of Up, where Carl and Ellie have been saving money their entire lives to try to take this big voyage, and she dies.
Right.
And so he goes ahead and does it. But the general question of, like, you and I always dreamt that we would, hike the Pacific Crest Trail, and then our relationship ends. Are we better off jettisoning it altogether or doing it on our own? I think the field knows nothing about that.
Yeah. So on this podcast, we rate movies from 1 to 5 stars. So I'll let you go first. Eli, how many stars do you give Titanic?
Let me build up to it for a second.
Okay.
The dialogue, much of it is corny, and the plot has some flotsam and jetsam.
Yeah.
And we don't need old Rose's voiceover saying that her mom looked like Jack, like he was an insect, and then we look at her mom looking like Jack as if he's an insect. But this movie is iconic.
Yeah.
It works excellently in many genres. One of the best action films I have ever seen.
Yeah.
I had forgotten how gripping it is. And then the music.
Yeah.
Like, we get these teasers to the My Heart Will Go On themes throughout, and it's almost like in those early prequel Star Wars movies where you get the Imperial March early on, and you know it's going to be Vader. Ultimately, this is a 5-star movie to me. I thought I wasn't going to love it. My memory was that it was corny.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be ungenerous for me to focus on those quibbles when we've witnessed a monumental achievement of this magnitude.
I think I agree. I'm also at 5. It feels to me like too cute to go under 5, especially when you keep in mind the incredible technological achievement.
Amazing.
I mean, and that it still pretty much looks great.
Yeah, it still does. And it's a great romance.
Oh my God. Yeah, right. It's a very good romance and an incredible disaster movie.
Yes.
It's 5 stars.
5 stars.
I'm sorry. On this podcast, we also rate movies on Rust Bolts. Now, the Rust Bolt is named after Eli's advisor, the late, great Carol Rust Bolt, pioneer of close relationships research, with 5 stars indicating a near-perfect depiction of the nature of close relationships. This one's a little tricky. I think I end up at 3 because a lot of the initial attraction dynamics are very good, even though it's happening in a compressed period of time. But I don't think it's doing a great job of depicting any kind of ongoing relationship. And I just kind of don't buy the way that she kept him hidden for all these years. That doesn't seem like a great approach. But where do you land on
exactly the same?
Yeah,
and basically for the same reason. It does. It's like a gorgeous example of some really valuable things, some ridiculous, truly ridiculous things, and then a whole lot of like, we only had like 2.5 days with these people.
Right.
What would their relationship actually be? So 5 stars, 3 Rust Bolts.
That makes sense. Well, this has been the Love Factually podcast. I have been here live in person with Eli Finkel. We did it. We did a live podcast. It has happened. And I look forward to doing this with you next time.
Come visit me in Evanston more often. The Love Factually podcast is produced and edited by Paul Eastwick and Eli Finkel, featuring music from Andrew Fraker & Sons. Please reach out to us at lovefactuallypod@gmail.com. To learn more about the research we discussed in this episode, find the notes on our Substack. That's lovefactually.substack.com.